And so we of course, are looking at one another passages, and here we go. We are talking about encouraging one another this week, and what a great day it is to think about this concept of encouragement. I'd like for you to hold up your palm for a moment. You can do left or right. It doesn't matter, but I only need one. Okay, come on, guys. You can do it. Thank you. I like it when there's somebody who takes charge and just puts their palm up. In 1947, in Bell Laboratories, you can put them down now. Now you can kind of look at your palm. In 1947, in Bell Laboratories, what was invented? Bell Laboratories in 1947? The most important invention probably ever, right? I mean, it is like leaps and bounds above everything else. They invented the transistor. It's about the size of your palm. 1947, I would call it the single greatest invention in the history of mankind, right? After sin, of course, that's influenced our world. They made one, it was about the size of their palm. By 1954, Texas Instruments was putting 4 of them in a radio and selling them. The Reynolds something or another, I don't remember now the name of it, but there were 4 transistors in that radio, the transistor radio. By the time you got around to your 8088 computer, if you remember having an 8088 or an 8086, there were 29,000 of them in that one computer. Amazing that they could put what used to be the size of your palm into a computer, the 8088, if you remember it from many years ago. Some of us do, of course, because I went from the TI 994A to a 8088, and it was really exciting. 29,000 of them in there. Of course, today, regularly, a computer, phone, whatever, has a CPU chip with maybe 3 billion, 4 billion transistors on a little 1-inch piece of sand. And you think, wow, the difference in just our lifetimes of something as simple. Matter of fact, this year, Intel thinks that there will be more than 1 billion transistors manufactured for you alone. For just you. More than 1 billion. And for every other woman, man, and child on the planet will get at least 1 billion made for just themselves this year alone. You start thinking, wow, what an incredible invention. And what incredible things we do with it nowadays, from computers to cell phones to everything else, to looking at the PowerPoint screen here. I can see it on the TV right there. Billions of transistors in this room right now. And yet, this is what I love about this kind of stuff. It's like the contrast. It's like, with all of that, you would think, wow, there's a lot of power in all of that. But really, there's not. Really? What's better than any of that? A simple word of encouragement. It's like it has more power than you can possibly imagine. Think about what we do with encouragement. Think about what it took for those 3 guys at the Bell Lab to make it in 1947. I bet you they had all kinds of encouragement in order to get that far. From not just the bosses that wanted to see if they could break through with this invention. I mean, we're talking just after World War II, and just the money that was involved, and on and on and on it goes. How much encouragement it takes for us, and what encouragement will do for us. And that brings us to moms. That's what I think, that's certainly my own mom. I think that was her single greatest gift to me, would have been her encouragement. And so sometimes we call that a blessing, or we talk about how just that those words that bring us the encouragement to go forward, right? And so all of that kind of wrapped up a few months ago when we were working through these sermons and figuring out, okay, now we're going to do one another, and what are we going to do on Mother's Day? It was very obvious. It's like, encourage. It just fits, doesn't it? What we do as parents, and you want to be the best parent ever, give your children encouragement. So how important is it? We know it's important. It's the difference between victory and defeat. It's the words that we yearn for some encouragement, don't we? For our courage to be built up and for that to take place. We develop myths around it. You know, was there an actual guy who ran 25, 26 miles from marathon to Athens to deliver the good news that the Greek army had defeated the Persians, defeated Darius the First around 490 BC? Probably not. It's probably a mishmash of myths. And yet everywhere you go, just some little pictures of encouragement. I love that picture over there of the mom, like, isn't it so true? It's like that's what moms do. They give encouragement, don't they? But this thought, like even in Athens, you can find the statue to them, and probably it's a guy that actually ran to Sparta to tell them, hey, you guys want to come help us? And they said, we will, but give us a few days. We're in the middle of something. And then later on, but it was too late. That Athens had already won. They sent every last male army person that could fight to the battle. They defeated Persia. You know the story. The guy ran 25 or 26 miles, came back to Athens, and his dying breath, he was like, with joy I announce victory, or just Nike, or whatever way you want him to do it. And then he died there on the spot. It was like, I bring you encouragement. And of course, they were all worried, because if the battle had gone the other way and all their men had been killed, who would they have left? The city would have been, of course, burned up, and they'd all lost their lives. And so a word of encouragement, what we go through. Little side point, do you know why it's 26 miles and 365 yards? It happened in 1896 at the London Olympics. The box for the royal box was down a ways, 365 yards, and they said, oh, well, we want the ending to be in front of the royalty. And so they said, oh, well, let's just lengthen the distance of it another so many yards. And they've kept it ever since then, that distance. But anyway, it has nothing to do, of course, with this guy or with that. But anyway, so words of encouragement. That's what I want you to see with that, though. It's like we yearn for it. We desire it. It's stronger than we can possibly imagine what encouragement will do. I mean, we send missionaries all over the world, and it's all based on what? What made them decide to do it? Like some encouragement. We encourage them, right? And they found the courage to go wherever it is. And so it changes the direction of our lives. It's like changing the course of a stream. And so this thing called encouragement is really important. It is the most powerful force on earth. The Bible, of course, will explain it. Proverbs 18:21, it says it like this: life and death are in the power of your tongue. And if you say good things, it goes on to talk about how good that does, what that does to people, how that motivates, encourages people. And so life and death has always been in the power of words. Don't let anyone fool you. It's not really in the transistor. As many as there are made, it really comes down to what? The words that we speak or type or share with someone else over whatever medium we can find. And that power that we have to help people, it's like, how many times have we seen that in movies or we've read about it, or in the Bible, where it's like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, just bow down, just say I'm the king, just worship me with your words, everything will be fine. And they're not, we can't do it. It's just that simple. We can't say those words because there's power in words. And so think now about the church. So here's where we've gone so far. We've talked about the basics. It's like we're to love one another. How will the world know us? They'll know us through our love. Okay. Then we talked about how the kind of like the lubrication, the grease that keeps the wheels turning properly in a church, that's honor. Like yesterday, we honored our faithful pilgrims. And for those of you who are maybe newer, that's why we do that. It's like the families with young children are honoring the faithful pilgrims, people who have been faithful during their lives, however long that's been. And so we honor them. So faithful pilgrims is about that. And that's kind of like that fluid that keeps things going. And then we look at, well, now what are some tools in our toolbox? What do we do as a church? How do we display this love? And today we're on encourage, and what that word means, and how it is meant to be something that we do at every one of our worship services. So with that, Hebrews, let's look at it now. We'll get into the text. Maybe. Here we go. Well, let's pick it up in verse 23. Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. So he says to these first century Christians who are thinking about going back, he says, hold on. Hold fast to what you've got. Stay with Jesus. So now he's going to encourage them. Let us consider now. And so he's encouraging them to give other people courage. That's what church is all about. That's what our worship assembly is here for. It's not just to praise the Lord, though that's a part of it. It's also to find courage to keep going. So he says it like this. So consider how to prod, stir up, stimulate one another to love and good deeds. And so he's using that word encourage, and then he's going to use it in verse 25. Not forsaking our own assembly together, as is the habit of some, but encourage one another all the more as you see the day drawing near. And so what is he saying to us? He's saying, here's your tool. Your tool to help people is to encourage them. And that toolbox, that arsenal that we have, this thing can go far and help. So I need to be reminding others, have you come to church? Are you coming to where you need to be? Are you holding on to Jesus Christ? So that's what we're telling each other in our worship, as we do, right? This is what we tell each other. Like we say almost every Sunday, the very best place, the only place you need to be this morning is right here. There is no better place for your children. There's no better place there's no hobby, there's no work event, there's nothing else in your life that can replace it. 500 years from now, when you're sitting in paradise, you're not going to be able to say, you know what, I missed a lot of Sundays, but boy, did I take care of some great needlework. It's like I did all kinds of stuff with these little needles. I did all kinds of things. Nobody cares, right? They don't care. It's like all that matters is, did you help people? Did you give them courage to keep going in the face of all kinds of tough things going on in their lives? And so that's the way that works, isn't it? It's like there's no better place than to be a place where you can find encouragement, to find the courage to face the world, right? The world's a tough place. Think about the epidemic of loneliness. It's all around us. All of us need encouragement. What a tough week for people, right? The lies that Satan gives us, like you'll never be good enough, or nobody loves you, or is there really a God? How do you know? How do you know there's a God? You don't know there's a God. All those little lies that hit us over and over. So a word of encouragement that's here. These Hebrew Christians are facing tough times, exhaustion, division, persecution. They've been going about 20 years now, and now they're being called back to the law and away from Christ. And so he says, this is what your assembly is for, to give encouragement. Is it really real? So that's what That's what I learned when I come to worship, right? That's what we want our kids to learn when they come to worship. Is he real? And so, what day is this? Last little part from Hebrews 10 here. He's reminding them that as long as it's called today, you're to keep doing this, right? That's the point of the text. And are we in today? We're not tomorrow, and we're certainly not yesterday. It's today. So as long as it's today, you keep doing this. So I'm going to give you, as always, a few ways to encourage you on how to encourage others. How do we get better at this as a church? And so here's the list. Number one, there it is. Be deliberate. So if you're taking notes, this is the place where you can really take notes, because this is the deliberate part. It's like you've got to be deliberate in this. It doesn't just happen. You don't just go, I am the world's greatest encourager, and I just naturally do it. Hello there. Hey, you look really good. And do you know God loves you? God thinks you're great. And then the next person, hey, you. It's really hard to do that. We have to be deliberate. You must speak with intent. And so that means so much, doesn't it, when we do that? So it's not an easy thing to encourage, because we tend to think, wow, I had a rough week. It was a drain. And so I don't have any energy left to encourage you because it's been so bad, right? We get negative. And so we have to make a conscious effort to do this. It doesn't just happen so naturally. There's a few of you, right, that have practiced and made it such a habit. But I guarantee you didn't start out doing it, right? You had to make it a habit. It has to be deliberate in that choice to speak with intent to encourage. So, simple thing. Where do we get this word encouragement? You can hear it in the word. It's a part of the French word for heart, cœur, right? Encouragement. So you give people heart. That's really what we're doing when we encourage them. We're giving them courage. We're saying, take courage. We're giving them the heart to do it. The Greek, of course, paraklesis, is to pull somebody to your side. And that's certainly the one in here that we're looking at this morning in Hebrews. It's that thought of, like, I'm going to pull you to my side, and I'm going to partially carry you as you make the journey. In other words, I'm picking you up. Now, am I really picking you up? Am I doing it for you when I encourage you? No. Like, I encourage you this morning, and Paul, go to work tomorrow. You can do it. And Paul goes where? He goes to work. I'm not going to work with him. And he's like, well, you didn't encourage me. You didn't show up and do a part of my shift. It's like, no, that you get it? It's like my words propel, right? My words carry through. It's as if I went with them. So that's how strong words become. When we encourage other people, they find that the heart necessary to get to the next place, don't they? And so it's a powerful concept, and it's something that we all need, isn't it? So how do I excel at this? Number 2, I need to make Lclc a place of encouragement. If we want to be the most loving place on the planet, how do we become that? We go around talking about it. We are the most loving place. You ought to try it out. No, we do it by encouraging. So how are you encouraging others here? On Sunday morning, or at Faithful Pilgrims, or at a life group, or the myriads of other events that we have, making it a place of encouragement. So I've got to consciously, knowingly, deliberately do this choice. I am going to encourage someone. And then I'm going to do it at church, whatever event, however I can do it to help lift them up. Number 3, and you're going to do it 3 times a day. There's some other thing we're supposed to do 3 times a day. I don't know what it is, or maybe you eat 3 times a day or something, but 3 a day is perfect for encouragement. And it goes like this. You don't have to lie. Like, you don't have to tell a person, like, you know, whatever, like, you're the most handsomest person ever and you're going to go far in your life. It's like, you don't have to say that. You can instead say one of these, like, God loves you. That's simple, isn't it? It's like, God loves you. Is that encouragement? It is. If you tell that to somebody else, it's a huge reminder. The creator of the universe actually cares for you personally. I mean, it's a huge amount of encouragement. Or number 2 there, Jesus has a plan for your life. Hang on. It's going to get better. It's like, what a great source of encouragement. Or one day, we're all going to be together in heaven. Just hold on. Like, keep going. It's like something as simple as those phrases. Now, if you can get even more personal, like, I know God has a plan for you, and here it is. And so some of the ways that we can show encouragement and be very personal about it. Like, I know God has a plan for you, and I know what you're doing. I see how you love the church and how you've helped out in so many ways. And what a great source of encouragement to the rest of us. And so just thinking through however many ways we can do this. Number 4, who needs encouragement around here? Well, we've already talked about moms and how important this is. Obviously, the children in our congregation need this desperately. They need this. The world is bombarding our children with just so much stuff that has nothing to do with life, right? There's just so much out there for our children to face. And those little transistors we talked about, what have they done? What are those transistors doing for us? Those little transistors actually are making it quite difficult for our kids, right? Because they can now instantly hear messages that, like, from a myriad of voices that were not in their lives before that little thing was invented, right? I mean, you just think about growing up in some little West Texas town. How many voices could I hear in a typical week in Lubbock, Texas? Not very many. And so now you multiply that by all the noise that exists and how desperately our kids need something more than all that noise. And so the battles they face, it's what we need to be doing, right? And we are doing it, but I'm encouraging us, to do even more, to make this intentional, deliberate. And so all of that to say the last one, and the lesson's finished. We're wrapping it up here. We've got a couple minutes left before 11:30, and I think all of us can grow in this, right? All of us can be better encouragers. All of us know some of the ones that are really deliberate in this already. Like some of you are amazing little Barnabases running around, like encouraging and encouraging and encouraging. And you know, I started thinking through just I couldn't go through all of you. It's 11:20, and we're supposed to get out around 11:30ish. We can go a little later, of course, because it's the second service. But Spanish congregation's going to go, and Devin's going to need to do his thing. Talk about needing encouragement. Don't forget to encourage Devin. He's having to do quite a bit there in the Spanish congregation, and they've got lots of people. More people that come to church, the more there's to do, right? When you're in a young congregation like that. And so how many people, though, I could start here, but we really would be here all day, right? I could just kind of start in at Paul and keep working my way through Jim and Linwood, and we'd go on from there. Lori, here we go. And so, but, you know, we don't have time for that. But so you've got to do it, right? We've got to encourage each other. I mentioned a few people this morning, like Rob Ritter. I mean, bless his heart. You're here. You're at this one. And so Rob Ritter, he sees hundreds of people every week. It's like the first person they see when they come in our building, and we have hundreds of people coming to their building. Like every day we have hundreds of people coming in our building. And so you just think, that's a tough gig to be on all day long as the next visitor walks in the building. And so, and you know, if you've got the doctor didn't give me a shot and I really wanted one. Or more likely, the doctor didn't give me a bunch of narcotics and I really wanted some. Well, who are they going to go complain to? Rob. Rob, why isn't the guy giving me narcotics? Well, you know, we don't do that. And so it's like, you know, who's the face that's kind of like out there doing that all the time? And so just remember, there's a lot of people that need encouragement. I'm not saying that Rob needs it, but he does need it because that's a tough gig, right? Sitting there. And on it goes. You know, I think through different people that I mentioned Sarah in the first hour, and, you know, she had a pretty tough week. And so it's like, you know, you just start looking at, oh, wow, you know, you have to remember we're dealing with people that need help, that need God in their lives. And when they don't have God in their lives, things tend to be a little bit messed up. And so we need to be encouraging them. But here's my final encouragement for you, because I personally believe this. I don't know if you believe it or not, and it's okay, but we'd like to help convince you otherwise. But I really do think number 5 is really true, and that is LCOC is going to do awesome things in the next 10 years. The question is, are you going to be there for it or not? Because God's going to do it. And like Esther, he's basically saying to each of us, I've got all this stuff in mind, and I'm going to do this stuff, and are you going to be involved or not? If you're not, I'll get somebody else to do it. But if you will, great things will happen. And so I'd like to encourage you to think about, God does not give congregations a nearly $4 million building and then says after you're finished building it, okay, thanks. Life was great, but I'm God and I'm moving on to another church. See you later. It just doesn't happen that way. So, do you expect God to do great things? Hopefully you do, because he's going to. And so, you need to give other people courage, though, because anytime God's at work, it's a little bit discombobulating. It's discombobulating to show up at a pew, or in our case, a blue chair, and look to your left or right and go, I've never met you before. Who are you? And that can be discombobulating. And so it can be like people take out your favorite row, or, you know, whatever it might be. And so we all need a little bit of courage, don't we, when things change. And so having a new auditorium, it's going to be some big changes, because it's not going to look like this anymore, right? And we're all going to be facing the other way, number one. I don't know if I can get over that yet. It's going to be back to the foundation, because, you know, where Barb's sitting way back there in the back used to be the baptistry. And we finally had, Judith brought it. And great, I'd lost it, and she had a copy, and so now I have it back. It's great. So Aaron's blowing it up right now and adding it to the wall, so you'll see it on May 23rd. But we have the picture of the building from the dirt road in 1959. It's the road was still a dirt road. It's 1959. You entered in the church building right here, and then you kind of like went into the auditorium, and of course the auditorium faced that away, and the stone back there was the baptistry, and just, you know, the building didn't have the brick it has now, and there were like 3 ladies walking in, but I can't, you know, you can't quite see who they are or anything. It's too far away, but and you're like, wow, the building's a little different, but the building's going to be even more different, right? And so just some of that transformation. So what courage we need, don't we? We need encouragement. Our kids, all of us, our families. So think of deliberate ways you can do this week. It's 11:29, and with that, I encourage you to be God's people, to represent God to this place, and expect Him to do great things. All right, we're going to sing one more song. Lucas is out. It's time. Let's stand and sing.